So continue with our roles and logs. First I want to address one problem we had with the role. So that's it. You can see that even if we change the multiplier, which was the last thing we saw on the previous part, okay, if I change this to, well, maybe 2 is a little bit too, 5 is a little bit too extreme, let's go with 0.8. You can see that it's kinda, well, you know, it's not really the best, it doesn't look exactly the best thing to do. Okay, so that, well, this happens because if you go, let's close this because we don't need it. Basically what we are doing is we're getting on an animator. Let's go with one of the roles. Okay, if we go to the curves, and we need to find the hip bone, as you can see. Well, we don't need to find it, you don't have to do this, I'm just doing it to show you. So you can see over here we have the root, basically the curves for the root. So I'm going to imagine that the Z, which is the blue one, okay, well, hopefully you can see it in the video, but basically this is our root motion, which means that we get the value we have on the Z and we're basically just adding it on the forward. You can see that because our animation, it's not really the best one we have, that this line is really kinda awful. Okay, so we don't want to use this curve. So yeah, we're going to fix this. We're not going to mess with the animation at all. And here's why it's good to have, you know, if you know, the more stuff you know about the stages of development or other areas of development, it's a good thing because you can fix problems like this fairly easy. So I'm going to go with my state manager on the other, and I'm just going to add public animation curve, and I'm going to call this roll curve. I'm going to initialize it with here. Well, I'm going to start with here because we add the animator hook from the script, so that means if we add it in here as well, we cannot add it, we cannot edit it. So what I'm going to do is say animation curve, roll curve, and I'm just going to take it from the initialization stage, will be stage dot roll curve. Okay, pretty clear. However, we need a boolean that is going to tell us if we want to actually utilize this curve or just go with the curve we have, or well, what we are getting from the delta position. So I'm going to add the boolean if we are rolling, or maybe something like this. Okay, so if we are rolling, we can say, well, let's just split it, maybe it's going to be a little bit clearer. If rolling is false, then do this. Otherwise, we're going to utilize this rolling curve. Now, we cannot get the length of an animation, but because I made those animations, I know their length is probably around, we're only using the roll forward, okay, so it's probably around 1 point. You can see that this is from 30, it goes to 1, and then like this, well, at least for 30 frames. Anyway, we're going to just do this a little bit differently. So over here we're also going to set, instead of doing this, we can create a public void init for roll, and over here we can say we can delete the public, and we can add a float roll t. So we are rolling. If not rolling, no, rolling will be true. Roll t will also be 0. So in here we can say roll t plus time dot delta time, and we're going to use this to sample the animation curve. So we can get float z value, and we want the roll curve. I think it's called evaluate, yeah, evaluate roll t. Okay, so we can get this and just apply it as vector 3 v. We probably need to turn that into relative position though, so we're going to assign this. So our velocity will just go with forward multiplied by our z value. So this will give us, depending on the animation curve we have over here, this will give us the relative on the v. So turning that into relative position, I'm not entirely sure that we're going to need this, but let's just go with it. From local space to world space, transform direction, we want the v, so states dot rigid dot velocity will be our relative multiplied by our, actually let's write it over here, let's write it v1, let's get all this, v1, v2, we have our delta which we get from the state manager, I believe. No, it's the delta position. So this will be v1 y states delta, and we have a relative. We don't need this. It's going to stay like this. Okay, so what we're doing, we're sampling the curve. We probably going to have to change the t to be more appropriate with the length of our curve, but for right now we'll see what this is going to do. We evaluate, we get a value on the z. We create a new vector which is going to be 0, 0, 1, and we multiply by what we have on our value, on our curve. So if on our curve we are on 0, we're not going to be moving, but if we go at 1, we're going to basically multiply, we're getting the raw sample. After that we are multiplying this with the velocity, and then we have this. Now we could just change the velocity entirely by using only the curve, but then we would have control over it if we want to do fat rolls and stuff like that. Okay, of course we want to do all this stuff because they are fun to do. So over here we simply need to also public void close roll. So rolling is going to be rolling no more. In state manager then we have our multiplier. We can, yeah, let's add the multiplier in there also. So delete this and instead have a hook close roll animator hook, and we can say if rolling is false equals false, then return. So the next frame it's not going to change anything since there's no need, and we can say rm multiplier set this to 1. Pretty clear. So we need the init for all to init for all, dropping it in here should do the trick. Now, oops, we need the I hook init for all. In our controller, we see now we have a roll curve, and we have a few curves over here. This will be a linear, so that's going to be applied 1 all the time. Let's try it. Okay, it applies no matter how the animation plays. It's only linear, so it always starts from 1 to 1, multiplies by 1, and then the curve also is multiplied by this one. Let's go with the, let's see if we can find the correct length animation so that we fix the T as well. So I think this is the idle. Roll forward, we can go with, you can see that it's sampled a little bit strange, 30, probably because it's sampled 3, yeah, because it's sampled as 30 frames per second when we are creating it in Maya. So I'm going to guess that this is probably going to be 30, 50, around 0.45, I believe. Yeah, let's go with something, let's go with 0.5 seconds. So on our animator hook, I'm going to go into this time delta time, subdivide it by let's go with 0.5, and we'll see if it needs adjustment, and we can change this later. Basically it just takes the whole, well, yeah, it's going to apply the delta time, or well, we can use this delta time so we don't write it again. It's going to, yeah, it's going to sample it based on this. Now let's see if this will work. We're going to change the curve over here, and let's do, as you can see, it's going to be from 0 to 1. So it's going to apply the force gradually. To properly see it, let's go with one of the bell curves, and I'm going to add the roll speed to maybe 5. Oh, and it doesn't work right now because we actually forgot to, did we? I think we forgot to assign this one. Let's see. Let's make sure we are actually in here. Yeah, we're in there. We're in there. When we are attacking, we are not. So this works fine. So something we need to readjust. It's probably the time delta time 0.5, maybe. Let's go with the opposite. Yeah, that's not it. Let's go with stage.delta then, and we're going to say multiply by 0.5, and if roll t is greater than 1, then roll t, set it to 1. We might add something else in here too, but we're going to see. Let's try it now. Yeah, now it works. Well, it doesn't actually work that great though. unless we have a problem with our curves. Let's see. We're going to make this public. Or actually, we don't even need this one, since we have access to the states, so we can delete this and just go directly to the state manager. Maybe it's that one. Roll curve. Let's try it now. Let's debug the values. Then we have this. Let's debug. Oops, yeah, that's why it wasn't working. We are actually adding the wrong velocity. Hit play. Perfect. Okay. So what happened is basically the relative position wasn't working, so we need to get the relative multiplied over here, and basically the force is applied, starts with 0, over here is applied all of it, and over here then it stops. So let's change this to 1.5. Yeah, it kind of jumps a little bit because of the forces involved. So what we can do is basically just set the roll speed, something like this. So we're basically animating with a curve inside Unity, and maybe change this to node auto, smooth, no. Lower this, no, it doesn't lower. No. Well, let's go with broken so we can control this. Let's go with this broken as well. Yeah, that's probably horrible. So delete this one. Let's see, let's use one of these. Let's place it around over here. So the speed is going to be applied on full force over here, and then slowly and gradually lower it down, but maybe something like this is a little bit better. Broken, and then assign it like this. Okay, close this, and we need to also sample it. Maybe we bring this one up, but I also want to debug it to see what values we're getting, because I think this will be the opposite. Have a hunch, we'll see. Yeah, the values we're getting are too much, so let's try the opposites. Otherwise we might just leave it like that, and we'll see. Oh, now they are too much. Anyway, let's remove that. Let's delete this one. Let's leave it at states.delta, and we'll see. I will have to think about it basically. Yeah, this is way too much. So evaluates 1 by 1 by 1.5. Let's do, open this up, and let's go. We are adding on our t. Okay, when roll t is greater than 1, we have it at 1. We get our z value, we multiply the z value by 1 basically, and then we turn that into relative direction, and we have a relative multiplied by, oh, I think it's might be getting lost in here, and maybe we don't need the stage delta in here. Let's see. Actually, let's comment this part out and put one over here. Let's see if this is going to change now. And it doesn't. I think it does, but the roll curve is bringing some problems. So I want to see what values I'm getting from this one. So basically what is going to be the maximum value it evaluates right now. And all that would have been solved if Unity had its own way to get the length of a clip animation. Okay, so you can see that where the problem starts. All the values we are getting are mostly starting from 0, and then immediately they jumped on 6, an error. So let's do again subdivision. Oops, 0.5, I want it. And yeah, this gets a little bit better values, but the maximum, I think it goes 0.9. So we're never actually reaching 1. So we can just say, well, basically we can start from 1, now that I think of it. Value be 1, and maybe around over here. Maybe edit this also, set it to 1, and maybe around over here we can stop adding that value. Something doesn't work exactly as we want it to. And I see that roll T isn't actually getting resetted. Yeah, we forgot to do that, I guess. Close roll, hit play now. No, that still doesn't work. Let's go maybe with controller normal and then change this to 20. Yeah, now it works actually. Okay, you can see that it actually has values. So now it's a matter of fact of just finding the correct curve, as you can see over here. So maybe something like this, I don't know, something like this. Maybe we have one over here that, so he's not entirely jumping value to 1, something like this. Maybe roll speed should be something around 15. Let's try this one. Okay, now it actually feels like it has some proper value. Of course, it might need a little bit more love, but yeah, it works fine. So we probably need to remove this one, delete this key, and maybe make this broken. Apply it somewhere, something like this. So we're now on, we're basically, yeah, we are on animating, not really scripting. Save this, close this, and then let's try it again. Okay, much more better. We might need, yeah, a little bit of change over there. We might actually be stopping sooner, so this might be a little, might need a little bit more adjustment. Let's go with 65. I think this might feel a little bit faster as well. But yeah, it's all about tailoring the correct values now. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to leave it so that you can actually tailor it to what you want. But these are the values I'm using. And we now need to fix, of course, this, because if we are not having any inputs, then that means a character still applies some velocity on it, and we don't want that. To do this, all we have to do is on State Manager into our roles, we're simply going to check this one, I believe. If is not 0, init the role in there. Roll speed, you might want to set this one up in here as well. Otherwise, it's just going to play as an action animation, and I think the jump back should be maybe 1.3. Let's add the semicolon. And then let's try it. Okay, we're jumping back, we are rolling, we're jumping, we're rolling, we're jumping back, we're rolling, we're locking, we're rolling, we're rolling and rolling and rolling. Now, as I said, tailoring, you should probably do it, tailor it a little bit better, but yeah, for the most part this is what we actually want. So the next thing we're going to address is that if I add on my controller the giant, let's rename this guy into enemy giant, you will see that we are locking on his legs. Well, not his legs, behind his legs. Well, this might be something you want, but if this guy was even bigger, like, you know, like dragons and stuff like that, or, well, a dragon will be more apparent because you could lock on his tail, on his other feet, and basically everything like that. Okay, then you will having problems because we are now locking on his transform, so we're locking on his, well, you know, on his root over here. So we want to actually control where we want to lock, and to do that we're going to utilize this enemy target script a little bit more. So let's do public list target, let's go with just transforms, and we're going to call this targets new list transform. So we can also add an integer with an index and say public transform get target, and say targets return, or let's check the index first. If index is lower than your targets.count -1, then return targets. Maybe let's think. We want index, yeah, I'll just return the index over here. Otherwise, index should be 0, so return target index. Or maybe we can just do this, I guess. We probably won't need this one. Or actually, let's do another thing. Target index will start as the index, and if target index is going to be 0, and then we're going to say index plus plus, otherwise this index will also be 0, and we want to pass the target index. So this is going to always return you a target from here. Let's initialize this with start, and we also want the animator, because we have these are humanoids. Okay, we can basically hardcode this. Well, not hardcode, we can just use the humanoid bones, get component animator like this. Okay, so we can say if anim is humanoid, is human. Well, let's make it if human is false, and let's just say return. Okay, it's not going to do it basically. And what we can also do is make a public list, humanoid bones, human body bones. Let's say humanoid bones, new list, humanoid bones, and if he is human, then for each humanoid bone we have, maybe let's just write it h bones dot count. Then we are basically going to add targets dot add anim dot get humanoid get bone transform h bones Okay, so basically every humanoid bone we're going to select in here, it's going to return us a humanoid, it's going to add it as our targets in here. Pretty clear. And I can always override and create my own empties and just use those as targets. So let's see how this is going to actually work. For example, let's see, let's think. In our input handler, if we are on lock mode and we are pressing the right, we are using the right axis, it's not down, we're just moving around, then we can use states lock on target transform. Yeah, we can change this one. So we can say instead of the transform for lock on target, we can do lock get target. Yeah, get target. So we only changing this thing, but we need to go on our camera manager and check if we have deleted. Yeah, okay, we are not overriding the Y. If we had override the Y, it wouldn't make any difference. But what we also should change is that if we are not looking, if we are not on lock on, we should also be rotating. Yeah, well, actually this is correct, because this we'll make it so that we are yeah, it's going to do a slight jump in here. So we'll see, we're going to fix it if it's a problem. Let's go. We have our enemy, but let's see if we forgot to add something. So on our enemy target, in case we don't have anything assigned in here, we should always be returning at least there. This is going to be to return. It's going to give you an error if you don't have anything assigned. So we can say if targets.count equals 0, then simply return transform. Is going to return you the transform. So for this guy, you can use just the transform, his own transform. For this guy, we want to actually add something. Before we see the targets, let's go into the humanoid body bones, and I can say 4. And on hips, yeah, actually we also need to change this one. We go first with the hips. Let's go with left, maybe not left lower leg, right lower leg, and let's just keep it at 3. So we can aim at 3 positions. What we also need to change is on our input handler. This will happen on every frame. We don't want that, so we want to see on our right, on our axis, RT axis. We should probably do, and oh, this is the right trigger. We want a horizontal, yeah, or actually not horizontal. Do we have it? Yeah, we have it, but it's on the camera manager. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to actually handle it camera wise. So in here we're going to say enemy target lock on target, and our input handler down here we are just going to be assigning the lock on target. But if we are pressing the let's see on our camera manager, if we are pressing the keys on our inputs, which will be in here, okay, the CH and CV, we also need to actually assign a target. Public transform lock on target, and maybe call this lock on, or maybe call this lock on transform. And we're going to change that with this. Okay, we are locking on. This is track reference. No, we don't want track reference, we want a transform. So yeah, now we don't have the error. In here we can check, we should probably check. Let's do it a little bit dirty. So we have check if bool is moved or used right axis. Okay, so over here we're going to say if we probably need to also pass, instead of doing it in handler rotations, because I don't want to pass any more variables in this one, we're going to just use it in tick. So in here we're going to do if lock on target, no lock on target, lock on transform equals null, then lock on target, lock on transfer will be lock on target. If lock on target is not null, then you don't want to go over here. So lock on target dot get target. So basically it's going to see if you have a lock on target and you don't have a lock on transform, then it's going to apply find a transform to apply as a lock on target. And in here we're going to say if CH, the right axis horizontal, is greater than the maybe let's go with 0.6, then do this again, but if not, actually if math f dot absolute value of your controller horizontal for the right axis is greater than 0.6, if you have not used the right axis, then do this again. Otherwise do nothing and say used right axis will be true. And if used right axis, which will be over here, right axis, and your absolute value of CH is lower than 0.6 or 0.5 or whatever, or you can just do if it's 0, then use right axis is false. Okay, so it's not something wild, we're just doing this in here. And what we can also put is on get target, we can go bool negative, we can initialize it as false. Let's open this one up, and if negative, we're going to do the opposite. If negative equals false, put it in here, then do an else, and we're going to basically just check if index is lower than 0, then index will be targets dot count -1, and yeah, otherwise index minus minus, and target index should also be this one, target count, this one. Hopefully this will work, but it might not, we'll see. So when we're actually getting the target in our camera manager, we can say if you're going towards the right, if you're pressing towards the right, so if CH is greater than 0, then that means you want to the next target, otherwise you want your previous target. Let's save and let's just see. Yeah, we actually might not be that clear. Let's make this guy even bigger so it's really apparent where we are locking. So let's hit play. Okay, we are locking on his hips. We are looking on his upper right, where his leg. We are looking at his junk basically, but anyway, I think, yeah, left, something isn't working entirely correct. We can look towards all his limbs. I think the left one isn't actually working properly, so we're going to fix that. But yeah, for the next target we can basically look through his 3 limbs. Okay, so we can have this guy. But the other thing we can do, instead of adding this, let's make this 0, so we basically don't have anything. Okay, to not get any errors, we're basically just locking behind, on his transform. But yeah, as I said, the other thing we can do is we create an empty, and let's call this target. Enemy giant. Let's find somewhere to place him, to place it. Spine, spine. Okay, now we want the left leg, right foot. We want his foot. Drop this one on his foot. That sounded weird, but anyway. Okay. Take this one on the other foot. Now the points are over there, so we were locking there. This one will have gone down here, so we don't want that. So we're just going to reset it and maybe place it over here. And we're going to do the same for the other one. Reset. Bring it a little bit forward. Maybe inside his feet. So this one will actually work even if you don't have them as a humanoid target. Okay. Let's hit play. So even if he was an actual monster, this one will also work. And we have an argument out of range. It's probably the left one. So let's see. Oops. Yeah, I think I just realized what I did wrong. And it's probably, where is it? C8, I think it was inside our tick. No, it is inside our enemy target. And this should have been, I think. If index is lower than 0, then it's going to reset it 0. Otherwise, and let me think. So I wrote it a little bit cleaner. Okay, but now it basically it works fine both ways. So in the script, basically all I did is, yeah, I've removed the target index and stuff like that, but the only, problem, but it's not really a problem, is that it's going to start with index at 1, so it's just going to skip the first target you have over here, but yeah, it doesn't matter, you can still get it in here. But still, it's not entirely the best thing we actually want to use. You'll see we're going to actually change this in the future, or we might just do it in a bit. So what we're going to do is, yeah, basically this will work just fine. So we're passing the negative. If it's negative is false, or well, it's true. Well, it's false. We are adding on the index, okay, otherwise we are resetting it if it's lower, the index is lower than the count we have. Otherwise, if it's lower or equals to 0, then we are resetting this to the index and stuff like that. And then if you want to be entirely safe that you're not going to have any errors, you can simply do a mathf clamp like this. Now, we can, well, this doesn't actually, this kind of works like what we do, but if I was here and locking, okay, we could just lock like this into his feet. So for something like humanoid like this, it's not going to be much of a problem, I believe. Well, I think this one actually locks. Yeah, even if we are locking on his feet, as we can see, we are still moving towards his transform instead of the actual target we want. So we also need to fix that, and to do that on the state manager, actually before we go to the state manager, we can just simply go on our input hand, or maybe, yeah, just pass a transform in here instead of your lock on target, and on the input handler instead of getting it from yeah, that's actually not going to work. We still want this enemy target, lock on target, but we are going to change the transform lock on transform, and where we are using this, we're going to just use the lock on transform instead. So on our input handler, state manager, lock on target, and after the camera manager has run, actually we could just say now this needs a little bit of thought. If we do if states dot lock on transform is null, or maybe better yet, instead of doing this, we'll go into the camera manager and we're going to say, when we are updating the lock on transform, do we have the, we don't have the state manager, so we're going to actually pass the state manager as well. So state manager, oops, states transform. Well, instead of passing the transform, we can just pass the state manager, the state, and the target will be state dot transform, and our states is going to be our st. Let's fix the initialization. We have our pick. Oops, we won't find all references. This one, so we're going to be passing the states instead. So if the state manager is in here, lock on transform, where we are changing the transform or the target transform in our fixed tick, no, in our camera manager, let's close this, or when we are taking lock on transform, states dot lock on transform will be this lock on transform, and we should also do this in here. Okay, pretty simple. So one more thing we need to also change. The first frame, this is going to give us an error on the state manager, and it's going to happen because this one is not yet assigned. So to fix the error, we can simply go over here and lock on is false, and lock on transform is not equals null. Okay, so even if the lock on is true, the lock on transform should not be null, otherwise it's just going to use your move direction. Let's try it, and I think we are getting close to finishing with this one as well. We have a problem, as I can see. Let's see, it's probably yeah, it's this one. Oh, yeah, because it's going to, maybe it's not over here that we want it. So maybe let's do another ternary. Oops. If lock on transform is not null, then let's write it a little bit clearer. I guess we should probably do that. Otherwise, just pass the move direction again Okay, this is just if statements. Hopefully it's not going to be too confusing, but basically it's two if statements. If your lock on is false, then assign your move direction. If it isn't, then check if your lock on transform is not null, and if it isn't, then apply this one. Otherwise, apply your move direction. And we should probably make sure this is not, this also turns to null when we're going out. Lock on target, and we're going to also do the opposite. States dot lock on transform, camera manager, lock on transform. Okay, hopefully we shouldn't have any problems right now. And we don't. Okay, and now when I'm walking towards, I'm actually walking towards where I'm aiming. So, yeah, that's basically, for the most part, we are on a good position. We've seen a lot of stuff. We have roles, which are also pretty good. Well, maybe the values need a little bit more adjustment. So on controller, maybe 15 is too much. Let's go with 10. But yeah, as I said, you probably, if you're not happy and if you have better rolling animations like these ones, then simply remove the roll curve and do it the other way we have it. Otherwise, this will just do fine. Okay, we have our roll curves. We can move, we can aim, and we might actually, yeah, let's just leave it on the next one after that, so we can actually select between enemies, because right now it's kind of hard-coded. So, yeah, that's it. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends, families, acquaintances, you know, your neighbors. And if you like it and you want to see more, and you want to see them earlier, then consider supporting me on Patreon. And the other way you can support me is, of course, via Gumroad, by grabbing a project or two, including this one when it's going to be ready. Okay, and everything goes back into making even more great videos like this, because just making the animations for all of this just takes really too much amount of time. So I'll see you on the next one.